everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon in April. I know some of you are probably sad because you have snow. I can tell you it's really beautiful in springtime here outside of Hot Springs, Arkansas. So you can just be envious. Our speakers today are coming from Salt Lake, Utah. What's it doing up there, girls?
It's lovely today. It's like 60 degrees and sunny and beautiful.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, we still have a few people popping in, so I may stall for a moment, but not for too long. I think I know everybody. I'm so happy to, I feel like I'm looking in, the magic mirror on Romper Room, the children's show. I'm happy to see Heidi. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm always happy to see Lacey and Jonna. So my name is Ruth Ann Rugg. If there's anyone who does not know me, I am the managing director for COSMA, Coalition State Museum Associations. I also work part-time for the Texas Association of Museums, and we just finished our online conference last week. So in a very real way, I am toast. And all of you who have been recovering from your conferences as well, you know, the vast majority are in April. I'm not sure why. Then you will be able to relate. But fortunately, I am in really good hands this afternoon because we have got the power team from Utah Museums Association here to talk to us about the program that they are planning out west. Excuse me. We wanted to talk about mentorship and started looking for a mentor program. And I'm here to tell you there's not very many state museum associations that even have one. So we went to the next best thing, which is one that is under construction that looks like it will be terrific. So with no further ado, I got my cheat sheet over here. I'm going to introduce you to Ruth White, who is the executive assistant for Utah Museums Association, and Alicia Cunningham-Bryant, and she's got a long credential. Let me just tell you. She is, first of all, a Ph.D. and associate professor in the Honors College and director of fellowship advising at Westminster College in Salt Lake. And in spite of all that, she makes time to serve on the board of the Utah Museums Association, and they're both making time to be with us today. So with no further ado, ladies, I will just turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ruth Ann. It's a pleasure to be here on such a lovely day. Shall I just share my screen, Ruth?
Sure.
Yeah, I think let's
have that.
just dive right into it.
Yeah. All right. I think after like a year of teaching online, I'd have this nailed, but I swear, if you put me under pressure, it all falls apart. So yeah, as Ruth Ann mentioned, Ruth and I are from the Utah Museums Association, and we are in the process of currently building our mentorship program. And so what we're showing you is our opening gambit, as it were, in what our mentorship program is going to look like and how we plan to run it, and what sort of brought it about for us. You can see all of my teaching background in full swing because I have our plan for today. I thought when Ruth and I were discussing this, and as Ruth Ann asked us, we thought we'd give you a little background on who we are, what drew us to this project, and then how is it going to work? And then we're going to have a chat, all of us together, on thinking and planning for your own potential mentorship programs. And we're going to use you as a feedback opportunity for us to help us think through any things that would help us make our plan stronger. So we appreciate you, and we're going to use you to the best of our ability. Let's see. All right. Ruth, you want to give us some background? You're, yeah, you were muted.
Unmute myself. So I typically work in my house where I am the only human being in my house, so I never worry about muting myself. But I am down in southern Utah today, and there are small humans around, so I will try to stay muted when I'm not talking. So the Utah Museums Association, we've been around for a while. We were founded in 1972, but we are a mostly volunteer organization. I am the sole contract staff person, and I work quarter time. So in approaching this process, we also had to think through the fact that we don't have a lot of full-time staff that can make it happen. Like, we had to do something that was sustainable with the structure that we had. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other programs that we do, just so you have an idea, because I know all state museum associations are set up slightly differently and operate slightly differently. Our big main program is our annual conference every year. We do a 3-day conference. It travels around the state. Last year, we actually implemented, prior to the pandemic, we implemented a new program called Sights and Insights, which is an in-person networking training series that travels around the state. And it was successful and launched during a pandemic, which we were pretty proud of. But the pandemic also pushed us into doing our museum exchange, which is a virtual hour-long monthly chat, just to connect people and to talk about important topics. So those are kind of our main, and then advocacy, of course, once a year. So we wanted to bring in a mentorship program, part of that, and not make it too much, but also have it be something that really serves our people.
You want to take this part, or you want me to?
Go for it. No, go for it.
Okay. So why are we doing this? Because as you just heard from Ruth, for an all volunteer organization, except for Ruth, who is quarter time, and I swear works more than any human I've ever met, we wanted to do something, but also it has to be manageable. So we're responding to the needs of our community. As seems to be coming up for all of you as well, there's sort of this underlying desire for professionals to be participating in mentorship. We're always looking to grow in our areas of expertise, to advance our careers, to provide opportunities in our museums. And we were sort of hearing this bubbling up through surveys at our annual conference. As Ruth mentioned, we do surveys after every session, as well as at the end of the conference, to get feedback from our community about what people are looking for. And people are always looking for mentorship, more opportunities to meet and work together. We've also seen an uptick in requests for support for advancing women and marginalized groups in museum fields in our state. And Utah itself has the Utah Women's Leadership Council, which does studies every year on how things are functioning for women in various careers, including nonprofits, 501c3s, things like that. And so this is something that we hear a lot from our members. We've been doing a lot more at the conference for women, and mentorship seemed to be something that was really coming through in those presentations and those conversations. And then one of our committees, and something that we're committed to, as Ruth mentioned, is professional development. We're offering Sights and Insights. We have a professional development committee. Our annual conference is meant to be professional development for our community members. And mentorship really ties to professional development. And so we wanted to do something that would sort of expand that reach, expand those opportunities beyond just our 3-day conference, sort of long-term, and build community that way as well. So this was really the biggest question, is how would it work? And when we started running feedback and talkback sessions with our community members about what they wanted for the mentorship program, we got sort of 2 different streams of requests. So the first stream of requests was effectively networking. People didn't know each other. and they wanted to build connections sort of across the state with people at different museums. And then we had a secondary track of requests, which was much more professional development, much more advancement based, much more ability to learn specific skills and improve the individual's career trajectories through mentorship and professional development. And those are two very different requests from our community, whether we're looking at networking or we're looking at sort of long-term lifts. So as we were trying to work through this, we came up with this idea to construct, to have networking opportunities at our annual conference continue, but to really build this much more structured mentorship program. And we also recognize that, as I'm sure is true for all of you, when you're an all volunteer organization and you're bringing in all these individuals, we didn't want to overwhelm mentors. We have a limited supply of people who are high. If what our community really wanted was advancement in their professional careers, we didn't want to like tackle 8 people and force them to take on 400. That seemed unrealistic and unfair, and wouldn't serve the mentors or the mentees. We wanted this to be a reciprocal relationship that would actually be supportive and useful for both sides of this. So we came up with this pod structure, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in a second. But the first aspect of what our plan is, as it currently stands, is maybe I'll show you and then I'll go back, is to start with these pods. So we want to ask mentors to participate, but we also want to provide that networking opportunity for our community as well. So when I say pods, what I mean is we're going to have an individual mentor who will have 3 to 4 mentees. Those every month, the mentor will meet once with their pod on a specific professional development concern or question. And then the mentee pod will meet separately from that again. So the mentor is only opted in for once a month, but the pod members are participating twice a month at least, or as much as they want more than that, but at least twice a month. Because again, our community was really looking for community, and they were looking for the opportunity not just to have that sort of advancement piece, but they also wanted the ability to reach out to peers in their field, even if it's not specifically what they do, in order to get feedback or understanding of how things work in other locations or what they could do and sort of build that structure themselves. So we wanted to sort of create this flexibility and also limit the asks on our mentors. So the way that this is our current plan is we're going to do an outreach survey to our whole community to identify those who are interested in being a mentee or a mentor, or both, because no matter where you are in your career, you can be looking to gain more professional development, but you can also give professional development to others, especially for those of us who are sort of mid-career. Then based off of the feedback we received from our survey, we'll be building modules based off of areas of concern for the pods to work through. So in that once a month meeting with their mentor. Then we're going to do matchmaking based off of the mentor's areas of expertise and the mentees' desires, and sort of building those sort of cohorts together. And we're going to run this pilot where each pod will meet once per month with their mentor one time on their own in their cohort, as I just mentioned. So this is roughly what it looks like as a schematic, but it will be bigger, ostensibly, hopefully, than 2 mentors and mentees. Ruth, you want to run us through the timeline?
Yes, so we're building the survey now. We'll release it in July. And then we'll be doing our follow-up at the conference, which is in October. This is the time that we typically are, everyone comes together. And so it's easier to grab people's attention at that point. Because of COVID, we are doing some sort of a hybrid conference event. So we will be able to have both those that choose to attend the conference in person and those that are joining us virtually. This also gives us some time to give people, to remind people to respond to the survey and to get the word out about what's going on. So then we'll build our pods at the end of the year and then introduce that in January so that the pilot actually runs for the first 6 months of next year. That also gives us time to see how it is going before the conference again the following year, where we can, report out on what's going on and also, kind of launch it again for the next year.
Before we sort of jump into the next section, actually, maybe we should stop and take questions about how it's functioning before we ask you, because we have a plan for the latter half of our PUFT. Are there questions about this strategy that we're using?
Or comments as well. We'll take one.
Just a quick comment. I hope you guys can hear me okay. My HVAC is running super loud right now. My name is Maddie. I'm with the New Mexico Association of Museums, and we're actually just starting our own mentorship program. So this is really outstanding resource for us. But just one thing, we are also kind of pursuing the pod approach, but we are thinking about basing our pods on kind of topics of interest. So having one mentor with maybe 4 to 5 mentees, depending on the interest we can generate, and having them based on like collections care or exhibition development, et cetera, et cetera. Interested to know what you think about having topic-based pods.
Yeah, that's awesome, Maddie. Thanks for that, and rock on. Congratulations. That sounds great. We talked about having topic-based pods, and one of the things that came out of that talkback session, I'm gonna say it was in September. Was it in September, Ruth? Time is such a construct these days. Was that a number of our constituents were interested in working. Utah is a very small museum community. And so people wanted to have the space to learn new skills and also vent about their own jobs without necessarily feeling like they could alienate themselves from other institutions in similar work environments in the future. And so one of the reasons we decided to do these sort of mix and match pods was in order to allow people to have to feel freer to express dissatisfaction or frustration sometimes in areas in which they work. But topic themed pods can be incredibly useful, especially if everybody's sort of leaning in the same direction and coming together and may not have those same concerns that some of our constituents did.
And another thing with this from a lot of our constituents is, we have a handful of museums that are large enough to have very specific staff for specific things. But we have 200 or so museums that only have a couple employees. And so those employees do collections management. They also do public programming. They also do, hanging exhibitions on the wall. They also do, advocacy. They just wear all the hats. And so there was a desire to kind of say, well, we want it to be a little bit more open-ended. And as they, some of them may choose to go on to museums where they specialize more. And so this gives them the chance to explore that as well as to what track they end up actually taking.
That's great. Thank
Girls,
you so much.
I'm trying to help you watch in the chat, and there's a really good question here about are mentors compensated in any way?
Excellent question. So we've talked about this as well. In news that will probably not surprise any of the rest of you, our budget is not huge. And one of our concerns when we were creating this, and one of the reasons we were hoping to keep this, the mentors' commitment to once a month, was in order to minimize their commitment and also our financial investment, because we recognize that we recognize the value of everyone's time. We also recognize our other constraints. And so we were trying to sort of, I guess, thread the needle. But so the short answer is not right now as it stands in our construction. Not right now. It's a volunteer ask.
Well, but I would encourage you to consider, I mean, compensation doesn't have to be money. I mean, it could very well be free registration to a workshop or something like that. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're also looking at, are there grants that we can apply for and get to expand the program, and that could include that funding? Because I do think, you are asking people to put in time. And this is the kind of program that really could be expanded greatly. And we've built it in a way such that it can kind of expand or contract based on resources. And I also see in the chat, talking about a placed event is amazing, which always is. And the EMP chapter of the Drinking About Museums, and those, I love that program. And we haven't had a lot of success in doing it here, but we've done a couple of events over the years.
I can't see the chat, so I'm just going, I'm rolling with what you see.
I can see the chat, so I will make sure that I'm keeping an eye on it, and then Ruth Ann can make sure that she sees anything that I miss as well. Other feedback on what we've shared of potential, obstacles that people see or questions that people want clarified before we kind of move to the next thing.
I have a question. I have 2 questions actually. The first is just what you all are planning. I know that Ruth, you've only paid staff, but what is the involvement going to be of you, Ruth, or any volunteer board members?
So my involvement is going to be very much kind of the admin portion of it, making sure that communications are set out, that we have a master document on the back end that tells us what we're doing and who is doing what. Alicia, her role on the board right now as the VP of Governance this is one of the projects that falls under her, and she has a committee of 4, if I did the math right. And so one of those committee members has really stepped up to say, I will kind of be the second person on this, looking at this pilot program and seeing how it works and making sure that we have the resources to run this first one.
Great. My second question was just about if you had any plans for like cross-pod networking as well as the monthly meetings of the pods.
You mean interpod relationships?
Yeah.
That's such a good question. We haven't really thought about cross-pod pollination, I guess. But I think it's a great idea. I know one of the things that we've been sort of noodling with is the idea that that your 6-month tenure with your pod, you could, the idea would be you could sign up again and you'd be sort of remixed. So you wouldn't have necessarily the same pod. So that it's not sort of a one-off training system, but that it is sort of an ongoing opportunity for individuals. But I like the idea of cross-pod pollination. I'll have to think about how we could make that happen.
Yeah, and part of this is we really want to set it up under kind of the Teach Amanda Fish philosophy of providing a way for people to get to know each other in this structured and facilitated environment, with the idea that it won't stop there. Like they will continue, now that they have these relationships, this is a way for them to continue to stay in touch and build their own personal network. And yeah, so Cynthia questioned in the chat, will we rotate mentors so 1 year off, 1 year on, so they don't burn out? Exactly. Yes. And that's why
exactly
6-month commitment.
Yeah.
So you could do a 6-month and take 6 months off.
Yeah. Potentially longer if all of a sudden we have just every mentor in the world coming forward to stand. But yes, our goal is always to have a rotation so that nobody's being burnt out, especially because it's a volunteer ask.
So, and we talked a lot about, what qualifies someone to be a mentor, and saying that this doesn't have to be someone who is at the top of their career, at the end of their career. Like you can be a mentor at many, many stages of your career. Probably not the first year in, you want to have people get their feet wet a little bit. But our plan is to be very open about what that means, and that you don't need to be like uber credentialed to be a mentor.
And it was one of the reasons that we wanted to, that came up in our conversations on governance committee, that the survey would allow you to choose to be both a mentor and a mentee, that you can participate in the program in both ways at the same time, because you may be a mentor in specific areas, things that you really are incredible at, or things that you've really taken on, and could provide a great deal of guidance and support, but also are looking to gain professional development in other areas, and are looking to expand and improve your positionality there. So envisioning yourself in both roles was important to us.
Are you planning on providing any sort of training for the mentors?
Yeah, so part of our goal is for the professional, so that the poor mentors aren't like thrown to the sea. The modules will be created to support the mentors and the mentees together. So they're not on their own to create whatever module it is. It will be built by us for them, but that they're participating, the mentors are participating in the module with the mentees, but they're also sort of talking through those issues and leading those conversations, but they're not responsible for the production of knowledge. Yeah, no, that I would definitely want to pay them then.
And that also allows it to have all of the different pods kind of have the same experience in that, which I think for the pilot is important to kind of see what works and what doesn't work.
It's also weirdly aided by COVID because we're able to run them a lot more digitally, and our pods, a lot of our members live on the Wasatch Front, along the mountains, but a number of our constituents don't. And so we can actually bring together communities in a way that I don't know that we would have thought to do 2 years ago. That would have felt a little harder in this program prior to this mass shift to digital space.
Because it turns out anyone can get on a Zoom call now, which was not true 18 months ago.
No, and especially for some of our small volunteer run museums, that was definitely not the case. So it's been exciting to see that shift.
There's been a request, can we elaborate, Alicia, a little bit more about what the modules will look like?
We can try. So the goal of the modules and the way that they'll work will be a, now realistically, friends, again, we're a volunteer board. So, and the governance committee that's running this in, partially with professional development, we're asking a lot of our members. So the goal of this will probably, each module will have a reading, and in my dream world, I will have built sort of an online course that you're working through for a module. Realistically, how beautiful that's going to look, I don't know. Is it going to wind up being a Canvas course as opposed to a beautifully streamlined set of online modules that individuals are participating in through the UMA website? I doubt that for the pilot. That's a level of web build that I don't know that I have time for, although maybe this summer, because I'm on faculty hours, maybe. But probably what we're looking at is like effectively a Canvas course with a series of modules with a reading, a video, and some best practices information, and a couple of training videos pulled from other organizations so that they're sort of a collaborative space. The goal being that we're not asking anyone to do more than 2 hours of work per module in preparation for that conversation. But then the conversation itself with the mentor would be an hour, and then with your pod members, an hour later in the month. And if it works and if things are going great, then I'd put in the time for the web build.
And if any of you would like to get on our email list so you get notifications of, you know, things, I'm happy to add you. Just I'll put my email in the chat. Okay, do you want to move on to the next one, Alicia?
Okay, so what we thought we'd do is use you all. And one of the reasons that we thought we'd ask for your help in thinking through SWOT analysis is often SWOT analyses can help us think through our own plans and the kinds of things that you or all are thinking of launching, or concerns that you have, or questions. And then that can inform the way that you choose to build your mentor program or not. If the obstacles or the threats are like way too overwhelming, then maybe it's not the time. Maybe what you're really looking at are just building professional development modules, throwing them on a website and calling it a day, as opposed to trying to create a structure and support it and manage it, if that's not something that's feasible for you, or maybe vice versa. Maybe you're really just looking at a networking organization as opposed to a professional development side as well. So to that end, I am going to escape from present mode. But we thought we'd ask you to sort of take maybe 1 minute right now and just think to yourselves about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that exist for a mentorship program like this.
Okay, now listen, you guys, I promised our colleagues that you were cooperative and collaborative and that you would jump right in with this. And I happen to know that some of you have wanted to do a mentorship program and have not for one reason or another. And now is your opportunity to share that. And if you want to come on your little Brady Bunch box and talk with us, that'd be great. But if not, you can put it in the chat. And don't be shy.
Yes.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start off, I guess, with strengths if we're starting there. I just know personally from being on the committee with Maddie that this is something that in New Mexico we've been asked for quite often from all sides of the museum field, and especially graduate students, I would say. So I think that this is a great thing, and definitely a big strength that you're just even trying to attempt this. And to get the ball rolling is going to be a great avenue for people, not only just to have someone else to talk to about the problems they're having at their museum and feel like they're being heard, they're not the only ones going through such and such issues, but to also, you know, network and stuff like you mentioned, I think is great.
Wonderful, thank you. You can pick any of the boxes, by the way. I was just checking to make sure my cursor was going to work. I'm not going to trap you in strengths.
From the chat from Jonna, that a strength is that it's peer-led. Also a strength or a weakness is that it's peer-led.
Very true.
Another from Heidi, a strength is that it builds community, which I think is what all of us are trying to do. A weakness is unbalanced needs in mentors and mentees.
I think too, a weakness might be, and this is something that the New Mexico Associations of Museums, I think we're going to have to really be aware of, is we are also a completely volunteer board, and the brand new emerging museum professionals committee that's kind of spearheading our mentorship program is also all volunteer, and balancing work and volunteer responsibilities. I think, at least for me, I'm experiencing some overload recently. So I think we're gonna have to be very careful about making sure we don't burn anybody out.
Well, and I think that one thing we've talked in this group a lot about is the fact that, you know, we're all balancing work and volunteer responsibilities, but we're doing all of that while we're still in a pandemic. Like, we've been in a pandemic for a long time and we're not quite there yet. And part of that is you're balancing work and personal life in a way that you never have before. And there are, you know, it hopefully soon will let up, but making sure that you're giving yourself grace in that as well.
I think one other threat that we might want to add is having a nice balance between it being kind of an informal conversation where people can present what they want to talk about, but also having structure so it doesn't just turn into a large bitch fest where, you know, we don't actually accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a time and a space for venting, but also to be productive. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would contribute one thing under opportunity. You know, if the pods are successful and they do form a community within themselves, they can be used for all kinds of things. They can be used for generating session ideas for your online conference. They can be used for outreach. They form their own little team, so to speak. They can serve many, many functions. So I don't know what word you'd put there, multitasking or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it could be very valuable.
Well, I think it strengthens other aspects of what you're doing because you're having that connectivity. Some more from the chat. A threat is mentor burnout, which we have. Just a second, it just moved. Mentor and mentee expectations, balance. And that can be a threat, that can be an opportunity as well. Zoom chat is a great opportunity to connect across distances, but at the same time, Zoom fatigue is a threat. People are becoming overwhelmed with the amount of Zoom commitments and hesitant to commit to anything new. I know as a board, we've talked a lot about Zoom and accessibility and how it has, as a state that has a wide geographic, not as big as Texas. But, you know, our state, we have the majority of our population in a very small area, and then the rest of the population spread out over a large geographic area where it just isn't feasible for people to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to participate in this half-hour meeting and I'm going to drive 4 hours to get there. Like, they're not going to. And so adding the video conference in has really helped our accessibility. But you also have internet issues. You have, you know, do you close caption everything? Which, Alicia, I think I've found a solution to that, that we can do it cost effectively. But, you know, having those abilities in there, it's just a lot of new things to think about. So let's see, other things that are coming up in the chat. Opportunities could lead to deeper and longer lasting communities of people, especially with long-term projects and issues like NAGPRA, which I think is really great. A potential threat for both mentors and mentees could be support from their institutions for the time commitment. I think that's really, really important to think through.
Can you say that one more time for me, Ruth?
A potential threat for both mentors and mentees could be support for their institutions for time commitment. So, and that's part of something that we've added to our board agreement a couple of years ago that we'll make sure that we add to this is, you know, just a checkbox of, do you have permission from your organization to put the time in? Like, somehow, permission's not the right word. We worded it better on our form, but like, is your organization endorsing you doing this on work hours? And I think part of that is also making sure that we're having that discussion and that we as an association are setting the expectation that employers should be giving people time to do this. Just like employers should be giving people the opportunity to serve on boards, to attend conferences and have professional development and you know, quite frankly, post salaries, you know, things like that, where if we're holding a bar, you know, putting the bar here of what that is, as a field, we're going to do much better. Okay, so closed captioning. So a couple of months ago, I looked into Otter AI. I will put it in the chat because I feel like when I say it, people don't understand what I'm saying. But it is, and I've used the free account in the past, which can be a tad bit clunky because you have to, it only lasts for 40 minutes or something, and you have to send out links and things like that. But they have recently integrated into Zoom. So I believe I've been talking with another colleague at the state, and we just used it on a call yesterday and it worked really well, where you can integrate it into Zoom. It's an annual fee for, it's like $250 or something for a year, and you get 6,000 hours of meeting time. So it basically just does a transcript of what you're saying. And my experience with it is, unless you have a really, really good closed captioner, the result is much more accurate than most human live captioning. So we will be looking at integrating that into what we do in the next little bit, I think, and I'm happy to report back of what's happening. Let's see, Jonna, Zoom closed captions for all of, I think this may be what, I think Zoom is marketing it as their thing.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, they are. And the live transcript does work well. The key is, it's worth bearing in mind that the paid version is better than the free version, because the free version of the live captioning, if I use them in my class, which is why I mention it, depending on how specialist your knowledge is, the free version specialist knowledge is not great transcribed. It can get real wiggly.
So, but I do think that moving forward, it's going to become a like, well, of course you offer this. Yeah. So we all need to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And how to do it in a cost-effective manner. Mm-hmm. Which live transcription now is getting, costs on that are going way up, and it's just, and scheduling is hard, and it's just not the right solution anymore. Okay, additional strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Going once.
I will say, I think a strength is the module suggestion, building those modules. So mentees and mentors are not just floating free in space, unstructured and unsure of what they need to do. So I think I really love that. And I'm also an educator, so that speaks to me strongly.
Yay, thanks, Maddie.
Let's see, this one may be obvious, but I love how robustly the program design combines PD with networking.
Yeah, and you know what you were saying a minute ago about the employers and giving them time off. If they had any idea how cheap this is, I mean, there are other opportunities for professional development that would cost them a pretty penny, and they can just let you have time off to do this. I mean, that would be really smart, I think.
Yeah, we had an interesting discussion with one of our professional development committee members where she said, we were talking about conference topics, and she said, this one isn't for the conference because it really needs to happen before. But she said, my director wants me to like write out what my ROI is. Like he wants a monetary ROI for me to attend the conference. Mm-hmm. You know, so it started us on this conversation of, well, what does that really mean? Because often you can't say, well, you spent $200 to send your staff to a conference and you gained, you know, $400 in revenue from it. Like that's not how it works. But you're investing in your staff, and your staff is then able to do more and better things, and that is why you do it. You know, that sort of idea.
Well, thank you all so much. That's awesome. Do you have any final questions, comments, concerns? Can we help you in any way?
Well, I think it's pretty exciting that New Mexico is working on this. And I am not surprised it's coming from the EMP angle. Excuse me. You know, every mentor program that I've been involved with, the difficulty has not been finding people who want a mentor. It's been finding qualified, willing, you know, good people who are making decent mentors. And the last one that I was involved with, we kind of ended it because it was becoming kind of a popularity contest. It's like, ooh, everybody wants this guy, or oh, please don't put me in that group. I've heard about her. I don't want to be in that group. And I think the way that you all are approaching it in your recruiting will probably alleviate some of those difficulties.
It's the dream.
It is the dream. We share your dream.
So I'm going to put the link to the slide deck in the chat again. It's a living document, and so we'll make sure that we go back through the chat and make sure that we've captured everything into that document. But then, you know, you can have it as of now to take back to your organizations and have your discussions.
Now, did I warn you all that these people are thieves? I mean, they will, well, we don't steal in COSMA, we repurpose. They will repurpose. So there's no telling really how many states you have helped with this afternoon. And I might also say that when you all get your evaluation for the program today, it will also have a link to the presentation. So you have more than one opportunity to get to it.
And we would be happy to give an update.
Oh, good.
You're out. So
we'll either be really happy or I'll just like have my head flat on the desk. It'll be great. You'll be able to tell going in how it's going.
Short update or a long one. So.
My goodness, that sounds really good. All right, well, anybody else? I don't want to close it down if you still have questions.
Just a resounding thank you for the presenters. This has been really great to hear for our emerging program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your wonderful and thoughtful help.
All right. Well, you guys have the email for Ruth. Sign up so you can get updates, and we will talk to you about coming back again next spring and tell us all about it. We can do best and worst, and you can tell us what pitfalls to avoid and what incredible successes that you were able to celebrate. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, y'all.